Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm so excited to have the fabulous Nicola Bird with me today. Nicola is the founder of A Little Peace of Mind. After 25 years studying psychology and 10 years coaching clients, Nicola stumbled across a completely revolutionary way of resolving anxiety. It transformed her life, melted away her anxiety, and means that she can now play the game of life in a much bigger way and ditch the control freak. Welcome, Nicola. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm just thrilled that you made the time for us because I know how busy you are. Every time I listen to a talk you're giving, there's always a new project.
Yeah, always.
And I love that. So tell me, let's start at the beginning. I know that A Little Peace of Mind is your one of the things you do. As I said, many things that you do. But I know that you specialize in anxiety, so I'd love to hear about what it was, your relationship with anxiety and what led you to coming across the principles.
Well, I had a 20-year relationship with anxiety, so we were long-term like that, me and anxiety. So I started in my 20s, I think, at university, and well, actually probably started before that, but I didn't realize that's when the panic attacks and the real anxiety and the social anxiety and not wanting to go out and the physical symptoms of anxiety started really for me. And I guess it was just a lifestyle of like high achieving, go, kind of lots of ambition, lots of drive, a lot of wanting to be the A student. And that was my life for 20 years. And so I was going out and creating businesses and having my kids and emigrating all around the world and doing all these like amazing things and totally believing that it was all because I was so driven and that was a good thing, right? Like, so I've got drive, I've got ambition, I'm going to go for it. Like, don't see why everybody else doesn't do the same. This is brilliant. Look at this amazing life I've got. And then behind the scenes, like panic attacks and fear and anxiety and sleepless nights. And I didn't connect the two at all, right, at all. And so I came across the principles as a result of like a wake-up call around money, actually. So in 2013 was my like breaking point in terms of my mental health. So that was like total burnout, total just couldn't go out of the house, didn't want to get out of bed, couldn't function at all for about 3 months. And I had a really good operations team at work and they took over. I just couldn't do anything. I had to hire someone to come pick my kids up from school and all that. And that at that point I was like, there has to be a different way. Something's wrong here. And like finally I listened. It took 20 years, but finally I was like, maybe there's something up here. And so I thought, it's my job. I'm doing the wrong job. So I had this total burnout. Then I hit a big number in my business, and there was nothing there when I hit that number. And that was the point at which I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I've been so driven. I've achieved the big goal, the big number. Now what? There was nothing there. There was nothing there. And that started me like, I must need to do a different job, a different career. And so I looked around and bumped into the work of Michael Neill and saw he was doing a coach training program. I thought, brilliant. I'll go and get his toolbox of coaching tools and tips. He'll tell me all the strategies and techniques. I was trained as a coach already, but it didn't work. The stuff I was doing didn't really work very well. So I thought, I'll go back to basics. I'll learn it again. I'll get a fresh toolkit and off I'll go. And so I started working with Michael Neill for that premise. I wanted to find a new direction, a new career, because I thought that happiness lay the other side of that. And very quickly, I knew there was something here, but I didn't know what it was. And about 10 weeks after I started working with him, book some tickets to go to Disneyland in Paris with my daughter, which I had been completely incapable of doing for the last 2 years. And I realized that my anxiety was gone. Even though Michael and I had never talked about that, it never come up as an issue. It's never anything I'd talked to him about. And yet somehow, as a result of the conversation I had with him, my anxiety vanished. And so that, it was like such a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal. It just like slipped off quietly while I wasn't looking. And given it had been such a major thing for like 20 years, that's just so amazing. But it still took another 3 years before I thought, maybe this would be helpful to other people with anxiety as well. Like 3 years it took me from well, more than that, 2013 until A Little Piece of Mind was born in 2017, where I literally was on a call minding my own business, and I heard somebody say, I really have got this thing that I'd really love to do, but I can't do it because I'm too anxious. And I just thought, oh, I could help you with that. And so I reached out to her, and within a month, A Little Piece of Mind had 100 people in it, and there was a program, and it was, and I was seeing results from the work and conversations I was having with people that I had never experienced in my, at that point, 10 years as a coach. Straight away.
So beautiful. I love that. Yeah. It's funny that we have a slightly parallel, because I used to coach people with codependency and narcissism, and I could understand it. I could point it out. I could explain it to them, but I couldn't help them find the way out of it because I hadn't found the way out.
Well, my background was like teaching people about how to be bigger, better, faster business owners, because that's the way you want to go, right? And it was like just pulling people along on my own insanity.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's hysterical. It's so funny because it's
so innocent though. But
when I came across the principles, it was like, oh my God, I found the way out, but I didn't think to help all these other people that had codependency find their way out. I was just like, okay, well, I just carried coaching like I normally coach.
Yeah. I carried on coaching business owners. I said, I found something really new, like this whole different, and it's really funny because I was like, there's this whole different way of understanding life. And it's, you know, when you first bump into the principles and you can get very evangelical, right? Be a 3P test, like you've all got to know about this stuff. And so I had all my clients that were used to me, that came to me because they wanted their asses kicked into doing something that they weren't doing. And that's why they paid me the big bucks. And all of a sudden I wasn't interested in doing that anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so there was that shift in business, in finances, in focus, in people I was working with, that kind of transition period. Yeah. But in truth, I was still learning. It was still starting to make sense to me. So what I was teaching and sharing about the principles at that point was pretty ungrounded. And so it didn't have that much impact. But when I started talking about my experience with anxiety and like, oh no, I knew there was no other explanation for the change that had happened in me apart from the principles. My business success, to be honest, it's a bit of my marketing knowledge and a bit of my contacts and a bit of my experience and a bit of my ability to build websites and a bit of grounding. And it's like I was a mishmash. And so, but when I came to share what had changed for me around anxiety, I had nothing else. It was the only thing that I could say, this is what made the difference. Mm-hmm. And as I shared my own truth, what I saw to be true about that, there's something about when we start to share, and everyone always says, teach what you know, teach from your own grounding, share what's real for you. And I was like, yeah, I am. But I didn't see the difference until I started sharing about the difference it had made to my anxiety. And all of a sudden it was like night and day, the impact and the shift that started to happen to people, because I was so on what I knew that it woke up what they already knew.
Yeah. That's so brilliant. And it's so true. We can talk theory till the cows come home, but I mean, what makes the impact really is how this changed my life.
Yeah.
You know, who I was before. And, you know, I've always loved those makeover shows. And it's like that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I lived in this box of, whether it's the box of anxiety or the box of, in my case, codependency or whatever it was, freedom that I found by just coming across the principles. So that's fabulous. So I'm sure, I shouldn't say that, because actually I was about to say, given, you know, what we've been going through over the last few months, I was going to say, have you seen a rise in anxiety? And then I realized it's quite funny, actually, because I've actually experienced a lot of people being incredibly calm. It's that sort of the slowing down has actually calmed them down, as you know, instead of being that doing.
Yeah.
So what have you seen over the last few months?
Well, I fully expected to see a load of freaking out in my Facebook groups. And instead what I saw, which was, of course, what happened is, before the pandemic, people were like, well, I want to go on holiday, but I can't. I need to go to work, but I can't. I want to get in a train, but I can't. I need to drive, but I can't. I'm worried about going out and seeing my friends and having nothing to say. My social anxiety is crippling, so I can't. I really would love to be able to go to the shopping centre, but I can't. And all of a sudden, when all of those things were taken off the table, they still weren't doing the things, but their expectation vanished that they should be able to. And so, because it was made of thought, right? It was only ever like, oh, I can't go to the supermarket and that's a problem. And then it became, oh, I can't go to the supermarket, but neither can anyone else. So hey ho, right? And the anxiety levels like went down in my groups from what I could see from my clients. And there's a little more so now, but more around, but never really to do with the pandemic that I've seen. It's more to do with, I want to socially distance and they don't seem to be, and I'm not happy with that. So there's a kind of a fearfulness around, well, look, I can't control other people, and so I'm not happy with. So there's a bit of that, but I think, to my mind, what I've seen is that, I don't know, I guess what I've seen about it is that there's an awakening in consciousness going on, and it feels like it's only just begun in my mind. And there's a shifting in consciousness, and it's you know what it feels like. I was talking to someone about this the other day. This is a metaphor that I've used before about when I bumped into the principles. I said, when I first bumped into the principles, it was like I was a caterpillar blipping along doing my thing, and all of a sudden there was, you know how caterpillars, as they become butterflies, they dissolve into caterpillar soup, basically, before they reform as a butterfly. But the caterpillar in its current form, actually, it doesn't grow wings and then start flying. It dissolves first into this gloopy soup, and then out of that something beautiful occurs. And when I bumped into the principles, that's what it felt like. I was in the caterpillar soup. I didn't know which way was up. I felt like I'd lost my bearings. And again, when I bumped into non-duality, that had the same effect on me. Like, oh my God, everything I thought I knew is not true. Nothing that I thought before is true. Why did nobody tell me? How did I not see this? Oh my, but that means, and like a total like free fall, right? And it's kind of like that again now. So to me, it feels like there's a caterpillar soup. A lot of the clients I'm talking to at the moment are in a really lost my mojo. I don't know. I can't get myself going. I don't know which way to go. I've got no inspiration. And it feels a bit like that at the moment, Del, I think. Well, certainly that's my way of understanding it, is it's like, oh no, it's fine. It's just caterpillar soup again, as everything starts to reshift and reorganize. And we don't know we have no idea of the beautiful world, the other side of that, because when we were a caterpillar, we had no idea what it was really like to be a butterfly. And before the principles, we had no idea what it would be like after the principles. We had no idea how beautiful it would be. None. Couldn't even imagine it. Our tiny minds could not perceive it. And that's my explanation and understanding for what I see in myself and a lot of my clients right now, is this shift in consciousness, and it feels a bit caterpillar soupy. Like weird projects are arising in my life, and like weird lack of the usual inspiration in a lot of my clients, a lot of the lack of the usual drivers, or like a recalibration. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. When this first happened, I said, God, this is like the sort of, it's almost like the perfect 3P experiment. Let's just strip off all the world of form or the outer world and have people go back inside. And because people kept saying things like, oh my God, I can't believe how happy I am. And I mean, and you know, it's like everybody found out where real happiness comes from.
I think everybody had the absolutely perfect, if they were willing to look at it, intensive experience.
Yeah.
So whatever we needed to see some more about, we got. So for people who think their happiness relies on the chat around the water cooler at work, that was taken away. So you could really take a look at that. For people who were, I don't know, dating, suddenly they weren't able to, and they had to sit and think and experience what it was like to be alone. I got enforced home time 6 months with my children as my intensive training of like, oh, you want to see some more about connection and love, right? Like, let's put you in the hothouse, right? Let's see how this works. And if we were willing to look at it, so, and I have been guilty of this, but you could reach for the bottle instead and just deny the whole thing, right? And I know a lot of people who've kind of drunk their way through COVID-19, right? Just like there's nothing else to do but drink and lay in bed. But if you were willing to stay open, if you're willing to stay awake through what was on offer here, if you wanted to see something that could shift and change you could in this just amazing time that we're in right now at the moment.
Yeah, I love it. I'll never forget the butterfly soup, but it really is. And honestly, I think most people I know have opened up and really seen something new during this time. And some people are a little more steeped in the soup and feeling a little like what's coming. But yeah, I think it has been an incredible opportunity for me, it's like I'm looking here going, what do I want to add back in? Because I was one of those doing, running a little bit. And now I'm a little bit like, I'm going to be selective with what I bring back in.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I still don't know. I've realized that it's kind of, even that is too much holding on to the old ways. Mm-hmm. Choosing what we bring back in it feels like the way the world worked before isn't the way it works afterwards. So I have no idea what to bring back in. Mm-hmm. I'm apparently doing stuff, but none of it's my choice. Yeah. When I think my old framework would be, right, okay, the summer's a write-off, but come September, what will I be doing and creating? And I'm just not in that space at all, which is really unlike me. Like, that would be my kind of old habitual ways of being. And at the moment, it's like, no, I really want to let the soup do its work. Mm. I don't want to rush that. I want to see what emerges rather than what can I, like, how do I?
Yeah.
And seeing that, you were saying some people are really struggling with like being in the soup because like it's all so unknown. And I see that's what this conversation is, the upside for us with this conversation is that we get to, for them it's the perfect intensive to see that we are living in the unknown. And to me, as I see that, like, we've all experienced that tomorrow it could be, everything could change. And so the only known we have is right now, this minute. And any idea of what I might do tomorrow or next week or September just doesn't even make sense to me right now at the moment, because the only known is like, I'm here, right here with you. That's it.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean, and
Yeah.
I've had this incredible feeling of being lived this last few months. I mean, it again, zero being in my head of what can I do, what should I do. It's just been sort of rushing through me, and me going, really? Well, that sounds like fun. Okay, I'll do a bit of this. But what I'm noticing is like, normally I would go to yoga every day, or I go to the gym and things, and that's the stuff where I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I didn't need to go to yoga and the gym. Maybe
Yeah.
just it's fine.
Yeah.
That type of doing. It's like, I don't think I want to push myself that far anymore. I mean, I want to be healthy, but I don't have to do
Yeah.
that type of. So that's the stuff where I'm being a bit more
Yeah.
selective. I'm like, not yet. My yoga.
Yeah, well, it's that reshifting of priorities, isn't it? As we re-enter, like what looks important to us now that didn't look so important, or what looks less important than it used to, I think.
Exactly. And I think, and you're right. I mean, this, like, I want things to go back to normal. Sometimes I hear, and I'm like, whoa, there is. Well, number one, say that again. Sorry.
I said it ain't gonna happen. I don't
It
think.
ain't going to happen, exactly. And it never happens. That's the illusion too, is we always think that things are going along in a certain way, and that's the way it's always going to be. So yeah, it's so funny. You know what I'd love you to share here, because I just heard you talking about it in the last few days with John. And I love the analogy for people. I mean, most people that watch the show, they're three principles people, they understand. But I love the way that you talked about thought, and you used I know you're spending a lot of time in your garden recently, and you used the analogy of the garden hose and the light and the sprinkles.
That was a beautiful metaphor for how our experience is created, is that this beautiful rainbow would be created, and then a second later the colors would shift, and they would change, and they'd shift, and they'd change, and they never stayed the same for more than a second. But there wasn't anything there. You couldn't reach out, you couldn't touch it, you couldn't, and yet it could be experienced. And it was the interplay of the three things. So there was the water that was coming through the hose was like unstoppably coming from the wall, if you like, right? A constant flow of water. The droplets of water that were coming out of the end of the hose, and the way they interacted with the sunlight, that's what created the illusory rainbow, this beautiful whole experience. In our lives, it's our experience of life. And they were just made of the interplay of these three elements: the water, the light, and the hose, right? Mm-hmm. And take out any one of those elements and no rainbow, right? Minus consciousness, no life. Minus mind, no life. And minus thought, no life. But they were all that was required. There was nothing else involved in that interplay. And yet it created the whole experience, fresh, live, in that very moment. And that it was just a beautiful way of seeing the interplay of the ingredients of human experience, I guess.
No, that's beautiful. I love how you shared that, because it just, for me, it was so profound. It was just a beautiful example of exactly, the interplay of mind, thought, and consciousness, and how the hose was going in one direction, and it created a rainbow of some sort of shape over here, and then just by simply moving or twisting, whatever, and that would sort of disperse, and another one would appear, and it was a great example of our experience of life. So that was just beautiful. So for people that are out there that are, because we are talking about anxiety right now, that what would you say was the thing that you saw that was the most helpful thing to help you with your anxiety or anxiety attacks when you first came across the principles?
I saw, when it happens, you can take care of it then. And then I saw, when it happens, you'll be taken care of. Still makes me cry. So I had been living, as most people with anxiety do, in a pile of what if thinking. What if I have a migraine now? What if I have a panic attack when I get there? What if they ask me to go to their wedding? What if I freak out at the airport? What if I can't get on the plane? What if they ask me to go on a motorway? What if I go there and I can't get back? What if someone gives me a lift and then I've got no way of getting home? And that was pretty much my whole mind space was full of that. And so I was conjuring up through thought some pretty ugly looking rainbows. And then almost like standing on the other side of the garden and trying to mitigate for the ugly rainbows that were apparently being created, right? It was like, well, I got to figure it out now. So if I get there and then I have a migraine, who am I going to call? Like, have I got their number? But what if they're not around? So who will I call then? And like, it just went on and on and on and on and on. And I had that, when you have a big insight, I know where I was sitting. I know the cafe I was sitting in Santa Monica, when I had that insight. And I had the insight, oh my God, when it happens, I can take care of it then. And my friend who was sitting over the table from me was the one who said, no, Nick, when it happens, you'll be taken care of. You don't even need to figure it out in the moment. Something else will show up just in the moment when you need it and will let you know exactly what to do. Yeah. And with that insight, just a whole mountain of thought collapsed. All the noise in my head collapsed. I saw, I didn't really understand what it was, right? Because it was really early on in my journey of the principles. So I didn't really understand what had happened. With hindsight, I can put words to it. So I can see that what I realized the truth of was that we all have this responsive intelligence that just in the moment and never a moment before provides answers, lets us know, move left, move right, go home, ask that person, ring that person, fall over, run away, screaming, whatever, right? Like, it lets you know in the moment. It always has. So why would it not in the future, right? Like, I saw the truth of it. I saw, oh my goodness, in the moment, I've always managed to get myself home. I've always managed to get the kids looked after. I've always managed to find a corner and have a panic attack. I've always managed to, seems like I'm still here with more or less grace, but somehow something has always come up in the moment. And so when I stopped what ifing, it was like a really loud radio suddenly turned off. And that radio was the anxiety. So I had other insights, but that was one of my most early, that was my first bumping into the idea of mind, that there was something other than me running the show. Yeah. And I had never ever considered that before.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, it's so obvious, but it's so unbelievable that none of us think that way. We just think we do. We really believe that we're doing it all. Yeah. And, when somebody says to you, well, who do you think is like beating your heart when you're asleep? Who's making your lungs breathe in that? We know there's so much that is going on. There's another analogy you used, which was so funny about the, when we sort of fall naturally, something in us is pushing our hand forward. We don't go look at our hands and go, which one's going to catch me? Yeah. It's happening. We are being lived and protected and guided, and every moment of every day. And like you say, you don't plan ahead for that. That's sort of, in that moment, something will occur to you that you need to do to take care of it.
Like, you don't have the faintest I never what if about, well, what if I want to pick up a coaster, a hole punch and a phone at the same time, right? How will I know where to put my fingers? Oh my goodness, how am I going to work that out? Because what if I drop things, and then who will pick them up? And what if it makes a noise? And what if the kids come in? And it's like, oh no, when I need to pick up a random 3 objects, something will arrange my fingers such that it becomes possible. And I don't have to give it a thought, not one. And the same thing that lets you know where to put your pinky and where to put your thumb runs our lives. And we don't have to give it a second thought, not one.
That is so brilliant, so profound, and yet so simple. And we're coming to the end of our time, and I almost want to just leave it on that note, because that's exactly it. It's just such an illusion that we think that we're the ones in charge and we have to mastermind the whole thing.
I was just to finish off on that note, I was talking to a client today, and the discussion we were having was like, that thought is surplus to requirements. It's like, it's possible to live a life where you live thoughtlessly. And my experience before was so full of thought. Like, I was wrestling with my own mind. And what I came to see as I explored the principles, insight after insight after insight, just helped me see, oh, I don't ever have to think that again. I don't ever have to think about that again. I don't ever have to think about myself again. I don't ever have to think about the principles again. None of it. And so I get to show up and live a pretty much, some of the time, not all the time, thoughtless life. And it's possible to live a life with a lot less thought than we think.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that I think it's often harder for really bright, intelligent people to let go of that concept that they're in charge. And I always say I'm sort of grateful that I always thought I was a bit thick, because I didn't really trust my thinking anyway. So.
Oh no, I definitely valued mine. I thought that's what it was all about.
Yeah, no, I love being lived. I love not having to sort of get in there and figure things out. So yeah. Well,
it's like the lazy girls approach to personal development.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that was fabulous. And I really, again, thank you so much. It was lovely spending this half hour with you. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah. So good luck with everything. I mean, I hope to see you again in London or here when we all start traveling again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at Adey-Jones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.